Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got play props here for you guys on a Wednesday night. 7 games to choose from on this slate tonight. We do have a couple other videos up for you about those games as well, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and follow along. Also can head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all of the great written content we have for you guys. Nate and I throw the props up there. Mo's throwing some props up there as well. Got plenty of March Madness. Also have our player props tool on the site. You can use that to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all of those sports books, giving us bets this season in the NBA. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first NBA play prop, Embiid.
Yeah, I think he smells the opportunity to get the MVP here and has been playing like the MVP over the last couple weeks since the All-Star break. 35 points per game. You look at just in March, 37 per game basically on a 38.5% usage, 136 offensive rating, also a 114 defensive rating. So putting his fingerprints all over this, showing this is Joel Embiid, of course, that he is a little bit more valuable than Jokic perhaps on that end as a two-way player. And we're talking about a game against the Cavs, the number one scoring defense in the league, but haven't had many answers for Embiid even when Jared Allen is active. He's averaged 30 per game in his last 9 against Allen, including a couple monster 40-point lines last February, getting the line 15.5 times in those games. And that's the key for Embiid is can you keep him off the line? Probably not. I mean, he's averaging 14 free throw attempts per game since the All-Star break. And on the road, 13 per game in his last 8 roadies. That there's a huge spike in terms of his scoring on the road, probably because the Sixers are more often in closer games and more often forced to play in the half court, I think. It's less of a maxi getting out and go. So he's averaging 34.5 in his last 8 road games with a higher usage rate compared to 31 at home in those last 8 and 9 games. And also playing on 2 days rest here, which is another reason to like Embiid. 39% usage rate this year when he has 2 days off. So DraftKings is giving you 31.5 points at just minus 105. It's very, very generous of you. Thank you, DraftKings. 32.5 at FanDuel, also really good odds. I guess they're trying to tempt people to say, like, oh, Cleveland's defense is so good. Like, there's no way Embiid. It just doesn't matter. They could be playing 6-on-5, and Embiid would probably get 30 points. So I'm looking at him to handle business here. 35 plus and a win at plus 230 is worth a look. And yeah, just the MVP race is getting closer and closer. He's about plus 160 now to catch Joker.
Yeah, Joel Embiid. MVB, yeah, it should be very clear we're talking about Joel Embiid in case that wasn't clear. 31.5 points is a lot, man. They definitely do kind of seem to want us to bet on this over and entice us, and maybe they think that shouldn't be that high because of the interior defense of the Cavs. But no, Allen's a huge deal. Mobley, as good as he is, all over the place, to be honest, is an amazing defender, but not necessarily going to be a match for Joel one-on-one, as nobody in the league is. So I think it's a good opportunity for sure to keep going with Joel. Like I'll trust you on it. I don't know that I'm going to be putting any money on Embiid tonight, but because it's just so high and I'm scared of it. But it's definitely not a bad bet with all the numbers he threw out there to indicate he's going to go over. So Desmond Bane under 23.5 points. It doesn't sound like a lot for a guy who is playing without Ja Morant, and maybe last season especially you think, oh, Ja's out, just take Bane's overs. But it's not quite that simple right now for him. It's 23.5 points, which is kind of high. It's actually minus 130 on DraftKings for him to go under, much worse than the over, which is actually even money for him to get over on DraftKings as well. Another little tempting, enticing over, right, that they want us to take here. But I would also just say, before I even continue, I might take over on the assists at 5.5, which is plus 120 on DraftKings and gets you really good odds. And here's why I'm looking at this. And I've been looking at Bane a couple times. I talked about him on player props on an article on thelines.com a few days ago as well, and had some similar things to say as what I'm about to say right now, which is, first of all, this game's going to be low scoring. It's the Heat. It's no Ja Morant. We've seen that in the last 2 times these teams has been without Ja, one without Bane, and the games are averaging 194 points because Memphis is averaging 103, and the Heat are averaging 91. So I do think it's going to be another, as you said at the time when you were reading those lines, a grit and grind kind of game for sure. And Bane without Ja this season, a little bit better, but 21 points versus 22 points. Still doesn't get you to the points prop, and that's in 9 games. It's just a 1-point uptick. He does go from 3 assists to 5.6, 5.7 assists per game without Ja. And in the last 2 games that Ja hasn't played, we're talking about assist totals of like 9 and 8, right? So he's been going up a lot more. Also, something that was very interesting in the one game that Ja and Bane did not play against Miami, Tyus Jones had 10 assists and nobody else had more than 2. Because nobody else can assist on this team besides, Tyus Jones or Ja, and in this case, Desmond Bane. I think they know that without Ja out there, they have even fewer ball handlers, and they really only have like 1, maybe 2 besides him that can really play make. So he needs to do that. In his last 2 versus Miami, who's amazing against shooting guards, where they limit points to the tune of the third fewest to shooting guards. In his last 2 versus the Heat last season, 19 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. That was in 29 and a half minutes. He'll probably get closer to 35 tonight, but I don't think that gets him enough points to get there. The assists you might consider, the other thing I was going to say is the Heat do allow the 8th most assists per game to shooting guards. So if there is a stat that you're going to give up to Bane, who has been getting more of those stats and has gotten over 5.5 assists in 4 of his last 5 without Ja Morant, the 5.5 assists for really good odds feels great. The under 24 points tonight also just feels like something that's going to have to happen in a low scoring game against this Heat squad.
Yeah, I think you're right on the logic here. If you wanted to take over on assists, I think I would just go 10.5 rebounds assists, because we're talking about that type of game, right, where the Heat are like 28th in offense, and there's going to be boards. 15 rebounds and assists for Bane in consecutive games. The second one in just 29 minutes against the Mavs.
Good call.
So yeah, I do think he'll be piling up peripherals, and I think he'll be right around 20, 22 points. So it's a little scary to take minus 130 on the under for me. But I do think, he's gonna have a lot of responsibilities here for the Grizz. I'm looking at former Grizzly Mike Conley, who is starting to settle into his role here with Minnesota. Aside from that really ugly offensive game for the entire team against Philly, he's been a reliable source of stats. I mean, those other 4 games you're talking about his last 5, in 4 of those, 17.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. So he's cruised past a prop of 20.5 PRA in those games. And Boston is not a shutdown force right now at all. Rob Williams is out. And that to me means I like both Conley and Gobert to get theirs going, to get going in the pick and roll game, to get the lob game going. Rudy is even money to have 15 points in this spot. Boston has given up 61 paint points in their last 3 road games with a 118 defensive rating. They've also gave up 27 assists to a Houston Rockets team in losing to them. A Houston Rockets team that has no interest in sharing the ball with each other. And so Conley, he's going to be distributing. It's tempting plus 125 odds for him to get 6 dimes here. I think the safer bet is to lump it all together. Assume he gets about 11, 12 points. He has had success against Boston, even as an old man in December of last season. 29, 4, and 7 at home with the Jazz. That's a season and a half ago. But averaging 19 and 4.5 assists in his last 5 against Marcus Smart and company. And I just don't think Boston is bringing that same intensity right now. So I look for Minnesota to have some success here with that pick and roll game.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. I think what's interesting about Conley is just it's like a revival. I mean, maybe he just needed to be closer to Rudy. I don't know, but yeah, I like this game tonight as well. The Celtics kind of struggling, like you said. So there's definitely some opportunity. We've talked about Marcus Smart not playing that well as well, if you're talking about the other perimeter defense there. So Conley should be okay tonight. And I like what's happened for his career, because I thought he might still have a little bit left to offer. And I think he definitely is showing that he does. So let's talk about a point guard on the other side of his career at the very beginning, Mr. Jaden Hardy, who we do not have any props for. Full discrepancy that we do not know what his props are yet, but we do not care. As Nate said, very eloquently, Jaden Hardy, I don't care what his props are over, is what we're choosing tonight. You could take the rebounds and assists. You could take the points. I'd really just go for the points, right? Like it's probably going to be like 16.5 is my throwing my guess out there after he's had back-to-back 20-point performances, including 28. He does play point guard, so we do want Kyrie to sit to make sure we get over it, but you might still get some late props for Jaden Hardy, even if Kyrie is declared eligible to play tonight by the coaching staff and the training staff there. I don't know why you would bring him back in a game against the Spurs. Maybe you just want to make sure you win because the Spurs had a huge 18-point victory last night against those Orlando Magic. But if you also look at the Orlando Magic and what they did, who scored for them, I mean, Markelle Fultz had a fine game. If he could shoot at all, he would have been a bigger threat. But then when Cole Anthony came in, he did fine as well. So the point guards were totally fine against the Spurs last night. That's definitely not where they're going to be stopping you with their starting point guard. I believe is Devontae Graham right now. There's a couple other guys getting run in there, some that none of us have heard of, I assure you. So I think there's some pretty good opportunity to get points. And Jaden Hardy, even if he gets 31 minutes off the bench, like give me 20 on that dude for sure. I just love the way he's playing right now. So talk to me about Jaden Hardy and how much you love him as well.
Yeah, I mean, 31 minutes is a low ball. He's played 39 his last two without Kyrie. Right. And you got to think the Mavs, even if they get Kyrie in there, are going to be like, this is our identity now. We have two high volume guards. So Hardy will slide into that Luka role a little bit. I mean, 32.5% usage with both those guys out, 25 points per game on really actually poor shooting because he's playing Memphis, right? And now he's playing the Spurs. And the Spurs are on a back-to-back, like you said. Spurs are playing Devontae Graham as much as possible and sitting their lengthy defenders like Keldon Johnson and Branham because they just don't want to necessarily win too many games.
Give us Branham back.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be available much down the stretch, but I don't think his props are still going to be that high. I mean, we only have this 2-game sample size, especially if Kyrie plays. Then you're looking at like 16 points probably. Maybe if he's out, we're more around the 20-point margin, but I just think he's going to continue to see huge usage for a Mavs team that's missing a lot of key scorers.
Yeah, I'm definitely tweeting out whatever Jaden Hardy's prop is as soon as we find it for sure. So make sure you stick on that. And anyway, you have to stick on stay on top of who is going to be playing in these games as well continuously throughout the rest of the season in the NBA. So make sure to stay on thelines.com with us as well. And that's all the time we have for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.